Hello everyone, welcome to Ukwakwa, our foods. Today we're going to be showing you how we made one of our winter projects on the farmstead. We tiled a tabletop to symbolize one of our wampum belts, the Oneida Tribal Belt. We're also going to explain the history behind this belt and its relationship with our foods. We hope to have more on our foods in future videos, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and click on notifications for new uploads.
Yo, ya won't go out on your day. Ya won't go out, Lodina Shonia. Ya won't go out, Sojina Weha, Sojina Weha, Yahine Gana Weha.
Wampum belts have a long history among the Haudenosaunee to memorialize agreements. The belts are made from the purple and white parts of clam shells, woven together. The belts serve as mnemonic devices of sorts, where speakers rely on the symbols in the belts to help them remember the terms of the agreement it is meant to memorialize. Here at our farmstead, Ukwakwa Tetwatunhatenyehse, our foods, where we plant things, we hope to be another resource for hosting events where the community comes to learn about planting, growing, harvesting, seed keeping, food preparation, food storage, as well as making traditional tools and crafts. With this goal in mind, we wanted to create a workspace with functional art that could also serve as a teaching tool. The result is a 23-foot long, 3 feet deep built-in table with 4,536 mosaic tiles and 50 surrounding tiles representing the Oneida Tribal Belt. As I tell the history of this belt, you can watch the process of how it all came together. The peacemaker brought the Haudenosaunee people together with a message of peace of mind, love, and power. We originally consisted of the Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, and the Seneca. We formed a powerful alliance of peace generations before European contact. In the early 1700s, the Tuscarora joined the Confederacy. In 1776, during the beginning of the Revolutionary War, the Haudenosaunee met at Grand Council meeting and committed to remaining neutral in the war. However, as time went on, remaining neutral seemed an overwhelming task. The Mohawks previously lost their homelands to white colonists and thought if they could defeat the colonists, that they may be able to get their homelands back. The Oneidas had more contact with the colonists and perceived them as allies. Eventually, tribes within the Confederacy began to choose sides in the war. The Mohawks, Senecas, Cayugas, and some Tuscaroras sided with the British. The Oneidas and the remaining Tuscaroras sided with the colonists. In an effort to remind the Haudenosaunee of their commitments to each other, Oneida Chief Shenandoah had a wampum belt made that consisted of 6 diamonds and 6 squares to represent each of the tribes and council fires of the 6 nations within the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. It has 2 white lines making a path along the diamonds to symbolize the peace and friendship among the nations. This belt is called the Oneida Tribal Belt. The purpose of the belt was to remind the Haudenosaunee of the original message the peacemaker brought to him and the reasons why the tribes agreed to form a confederacy of peace, protection, and unity. This effort could not hold the people together. The decision-making process among the Haudenosaunee people is one designed to bring consensus, with issues being at last presented to the Onondagas. In this instance, the Onondaga understood the reasoning of each tribe to choose the side they chose. The Onondagas said that each nation should decide on their own what to do, with the understanding that no matter what choices anyone made, it was going to impact them all. The Onondagas decided that the only thing to do would be to cover up the council fire to protect the peace that they had amongst each other. Covering up the fire did not mean that the Haudenosaunee were defeated. They were protecting their ideals of what it meant to be a confederacy. What was going on outside their territory and outside their government would impact them individually, but it would not impact the Confederacy as a whole. As the war went on, the Oneidas were known to deliver corn to the colonial troops. In the winter of 1778, an Oneida woman named Polly Cooper accompanied a group of Oneida delegates to feed corn to Washington's starving army. In 1779, when George Washington ordered Major General John Sullivan to attack the Haudenosaunee nations that sided with the British, the Oneida hesitated to participate. Only a few Oneida warriors agreed to accompany Sullivan on his campaign, and there exists no evidence of any Haudenosaunee people engaging in crop destruction that would infamously mark Sullivan's campaign. Instead, the Oneidas that did accompany Sullivan made repeated attempts to stop the destruction. Sullivan's nearly 4,000 men carried out their brief yet destructive campaign. The journals of Sullivan and his officers detail the destruction. In addition to the thousands of fruit trees uprooted and cut down, Sullivan and his men destroyed an unknown amount of beans, squash, and other vegetables, and an astounding 9.6 million pounds of corn. They destroyed hundreds of homes in over 40 Haudenosaunee towns. The destruction was so commonplace in the journals, the men eventually began to make casual references to the quantities of corn and the number of homes they burned at each successive location. At each location, they ate their fill, packed a bit to supplement their rations, fed their animals, and destroyed the rest. When they came upon the towns, they commonly noted that the residents must have fled in a hurry because they often left behind their food cooking over a fire. Fleeing or even a temporary truce seemed to be preferable over the loss of life that would ensue if they chose to stay and fight. This was due to the few Oneidas that accompanied Sullivan and ran ahead to warn the people in the villages that Sullivan was on his way. In 1780, Seneca, Onondaga, Cayuga, and Mohawk war parties surrounded Oneida and Tuscarora villages, coercing them into leaving. Many fled to Niagara, along with others, where a total of 5,000 Haudenosaunee sought refuge. In July, the Mohawks led a war party and burned Oneida and Tuscarora settlements. 400 Oneida and Tuscarora refugees sought aid and shelter at Fort Stanwix. There were too many refugees for the fort to house, so the general sent them to Schenectady. The military hastily built them miserable huts, scarcely fit for winter habitation. Although many were moved into the barracks, the general was unable to persuade Congress to send blankets. He eventually advanced the money on his own credit to purchase blankets, but they didn't arrive in time. A number of Oneida and Tuscarora refugees died from hunger, cold, and smallpox that winter. This is how the colonists repaid the Oneidas for their assistance in the war. Shortly after the close of the Revolutionary War, the Haudenosaunee relit their council fire at Onondaga to reunify the Confederacy. They again brought out the Oneida Tribal Belt to reaffirm their commitments to each other as a confederacy. In the 1830s, Turtle Clan chief Elijah Shenandoah brought the belt to Wisconsin. While on a trip to Albany, his acquaintances stole all his ceremonial clothing and his possessions, including the Oneida Tribal Belt. Today, the belt resides at the Field Museum in Chicago, pending repatriation efforts. However, the three current and distinct Oneida communities are not in agreement as to which community should take possession of the belt, indefinitely stalling any repatriation efforts. In 2020, we grew out the variety of corn that the Oneidas fed to Washington's starving army. We grew this variety to reestablish a relationship with her so we could share her with our community. We want others to grow her so that they can nourish their bodies with their ancient healing properties. We want to celebrate this corn in a time of peace and community building instead of only thinking about her role in a bloody war. We hope the Oneida flower corn that we grew in this Oneida Tribal Belt inspired tabletop can serve as a history lesson for our visitors to our farmstead and anyone who watches this video. Let them be a reminder of our roles and responsibilities as human beings placed on this earth to treat each other with respect and kindness. We are still learning about our foods. People have different ways of caring for our foods. We are sharing the way we learned how. One of the most amazing parts about this journey to get to know our foods better is that it is connecting us to so many people throughout the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and throughout Indian country. If you have any methods you want to share, please feel free to drop them in the comments or send us an email. Yawa Danito.